Hi, listeners. Thanks. Today I'm again with Nicole as my co-host. And hi, Nicole, official. And today we have a special guest, Zach. So he told me I should drive it, and with the question, and also because of you can ask also question. Now let me start. So Zach, give us a short intro. Who you are, what drives you, what's your passion? So something we get excited about you, please.
No, most definitely. Thanks for having me on. My name is Zach Monahan, and I would say you could describe me as a human first, and a guy that's been on a mission in the game of basketball for his entire life. And now I'm at a point at 30 years old where I'm kind of transitioning, kind of thinking about going back and playing. So that's probably the best way I could put it right away for you.
Okay, and you when if you want to ask me, let me know. So, but I have now a question because I'm a kind of fan of basketball. So I lived for a while in Toronto Raptors, right? So we see we see also the rivalry with Chicago. So both in Chicago, so I have to mention that with the
Yeah.
Bulls. So so what brought you to basketball? That was like when you was younger, that was the sport you liked. You tried something else?
Yeah, I think I grew up in a sports family. I have two older brothers who are about 10 and 8 years older than me. So I was kind of always just the little guy running around, trying to be around my older brothers and be around the game and their friends and their teams. So kind of from a young age, I've been in the gym. My mom is actually a 16-inch softball Hall of Famer. So
Wow.
I was very into baseball as well growing up. And then you kind of get into an age where you gotta make some choices as to what you want to focus on and where you want to take it to the future. That was a tough decision for me because I love baseball too. I'm very passionate about the both of them. I'm a sports junkie, man. I love sports too. Like you said, I love the Bulls. I'm a diehard Bulls fan. And those were some of my first basketball memories from that standpoint. Really like I was about 6 years old, probably my first Bulls memory, and that was them winning their sixth title. So I'm glad I had
Oh,
a little bit of that in me, because otherwise that would have been, I grew up in the LeBron era. So to me, that's kind of where LeBron has dominated the game of basketball for the last 20 years. And, sometimes I wish I was born a little bit earlier so I could have enjoyed Jordan a little bit more, but he inspires me every day, man. I love basketball. It's what I do. And that's kind of where I'm at today.
to LeBron, someone it's a funny story. Someone in Madrid asked me who you would rate better, LeBron or Michael Jordan, right? Then I said sorry, but I would say Michael Jordan, and not nothing against LeBron, but it was more my time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he was also maybe LeBron comes to this level also after he is an active player because he did all Michael Jordan did also something after he tried baseball. He's like a businessman. I mean, and anyway, so that's like a small episode. But you never made it actually close to the Chicago Bulls, so that was something unachievable, if I can ask.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I in my fifth year professionally, I spent 2 years in Spain. Then I went to Belgium, and then I actually went back to Spain. So going into my fifth year, I had an opportunity back home here with the G League, which is the NBA's second league.
Yes, I'm aware.
So I was affiliated with the New Orleans Pelicans organization.
Okay.
And I had a couple training camp offers from a couple G leagues, and I ultimately chose to go to the Pelicans one in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And the difference a little bit about like overseas and then back here is it starts a little bit later here. So that year I had to turn down my offers kind of go for this. So I was kind of all in. And, you know, I made it down, man. I made it, got the training camp invite, you know, 18 guys, and then they cut the roster down. And, you know, I was celebrating with my roommate and his wife in the apartment, because, you know, we both thought that, you know, we did enough to make the roster. And yeah, it was tough, man. I woke up the next morning, I got a call from the organization, like the head coach, and, you know, I had to go meet with them and the GM. You know, it was like 30 minutes later, and I was like, oh man, you know, this is either one way or the other. You know, either my dreams are coming true, or, you know, I'm like, and I could tell by the tone of his voice, you know, I was like, damn, like, you know, because I also wasn't expecting. I put in that summer, I worked the hardest I ever worked in my life. You know, I worked hard to get where I was in the game of basketball, but that summer especially, I put my pedal to the metal. You know, I was in the gym 3-4 times a day. I was in the weight room every day. My body felt the best it was, and yeah, man, that was a tough pill to swallow. It was a long 8-hour car ride. You know, they told me that. Went back in the apartment, packed up my car, and drove 8 hours home from Erie, Pennsylvania, back to Chicago here. And you know, it was a long car ride, but I was also just proud of myself for making it to that where I made it. You know, I always wanted to be associated with the association, and you know, I got my taste, but I was also just moving a little bit differently with what I kind of wanted out of my career. So then after that happened, you know, sometimes I'm a little stubborn. So I was like, all right, I'm going. You know, this one team from Bulgaria had offered me kind of every summer, and I was like, you know what, you know, they hit my agent up and offered me again after that happened, and I was like, you know what, yeah, I think that's the move, because I was working at Chipotle, I was working at a kids sports zone, you know, coaching some kids with basketball, and just trying to work out and stay. But, you know, I was like, if I want to keep playing, I got to go back overseas. So I took that job in Bulgaria, man, and, you know, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. And, you know, ultimately I ended up coming back home again. I was back at Chipotle, back at this kids sports zone. And, you know, then I was doing some more reflecting, and I was like, no, I still want to go back. You know, I'm not done. I can't let my career end like that. You know, I have a good home in Spain that I kind of built a good relationship with the club and with the community, and just kind of like, you know, feeling at home in a foreign country and in Galicia. And so I went back for 2 more years to Coruña. And then last year I did some, you know, I've kind of been really on a different movement with it, kind of trying to turn it into a project, turn my story into a project. And I went to a 4th division in Galicia, near Pontevedra, and I signed a contract just to practice on Fridays and play on Saturdays. And then I devoted every single hour that I wasn't there, just in my home in Coruña with my dog, and teaching myself animation and video editing off of YouTube. And, you know, it's really been able to do some soul searching, some discovery on what's my purpose with the game of basketball, but also my life, and like what I want to give back, and, you know, show what basketball gave to me and the doors it opened. You know, I think that's part of my calling for the next stage of my life. But, you know, I sit here and say that, and I'm also about to go back and play again in Spain, this time in the South. But, you know, just still dreaming, man. This is my dream. This is my love. And, you know, I kind of wrap your question full circle here. You know, I didn't reach maybe that ultimate goal I set for myself, but, you know, in kind of going on this journey my entire life, I've seen the world. I've learned a different language. I have people that I can truly call family and friends all around the world. And that to me carries a lot of value. And I think, you know, as my project goes public here in a couple months, I think you're going to be able to see that in the project, because it was a lot of dark times the last couple of years, a lot of soul searching, a lot of looking in the mirror, understanding, you know, why certain things have happened versus certain things I can't control. But yeah, man, that's life. You got to keep moving forward. So I'm happy I got a passion like basketball. Keep me going.
Nicole, your question.
Yeah, so I'm able to relate to Zach because I feel like after living abroad, like the last few years in like different parts of the world, I feel like my home is not really like where I belong anymore. So I can relate to what you have to say. Cause like in Madrid, I met lots of friends. I met you, Mickey, in Madrid. I have friends. I'm gonna go to their wedding next summer. But I feel like when you have like that sense of community and that sense of belonging, you just feel like so alive, even though your family and your friends are like, in Chicago and so forth. But it's so different, and it is the value of like meeting people from all walks of life, and you learn a lot about yourself when you do live abroad, as opposed to just like traveling is like very temporary for like a few weeks or a month or so forth, but actually living abroad really teaches you like different ways to discover more about yourself. But so I have a question. So you got a full ride for basketball, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
In college, you're talking about?
Yeah, in college,
Yeah.
correct. So the thing is, so you originally wanted to like go towards like the ML, towards like the NBA, right? That was like your original dream at first.
Yeah.
And then my question is, how were you able to discover playing basketball overseas as opposed to just like becoming in the NBA or like another league? So I'm just curious, like how did that discovery happen?
No, absolutely. That's a good question. So it's one of the things that I've looked back on kind of in this process. And I'm also proud of myself for being 19 years old and kind of making a change. So I went to South Dakota State University out of high school. I wanted to play Division I, but it also wasn't my biggest concern. My parents told me, hey, if you want to go to college, you got to get a scholarship. We can't afford to put you through college. So, I was like, I didn't really want to go to the school part, but I wanted to play basketball in college. So that's, as a younger kid in high school, that's what I worked hard. I set that my goal, and I achieved it. And then we had a lot of success my freshman year. So South Dakota State, they were in their 5th or 6th year of the Division I transition. So they were a Division I school. As a true freshman, I played in 26 games. I started 2 games. I was just kind of thrown into the fire. But I learned a lot. I was really small. I was kind of a late bloomer. And I could have used a year to redshirt, which if anybody's not familiar with what that is, like it's a year that it doesn't count against your eligibility to play, but you still practice with the team, you still lift with the team, you travel, you do all the things like you're a part of the team. You just can't play in the games. So it doesn't count as a year of your eligibility. And that's why you see some college athletes, they can get their master's degree, in their 5th year and do stuff like that with it. But I had the privilege to play behind a guy named Nate Walters, my freshman year, his junior year, who ultimately got drafted into the NBA. And with having this team success, like we made the first ever tournament, NCAA tournament in school history. Like we played against Baylor in the first round in New Mexico, the site of like the Jim Valvano national. It's just like crazy stuff as a sports fan growing up and like understanding stuff. That was a cool year for me. But I also felt a little bit out of my element in South Dakota, in Brookings, South Dakota at that, which is a great college sports town, just very different from my upbringing and, where I come from. But I learned a lot. And I also learned that I wanted to get a little more of the college experience because you only get one life. And I wanted to, I didn't want to fully be in South Dakota and not like have more of that athlete, because that like it's harder to there. It's really just your sport, and you got to do it, and it's isolated, and your dorm mates are people that their graduating class is 20 people, and you don't have a lot of things in common. But I'm extroverted in that way. I'm able to make new friends, and it taught me a lot. Anyways, I chose to go to Minnesota State Mankato, which was a Division II school, because coming back that second year, we were only graduating one guy, and he was a forward. And I wanted to have a little more opportunity selfishly on the basketball court to showcase what I could do. And then I wanted to get a little more of the college experience. And then my oldest brother, was an assistant coach at Minnesota State Mankato at the time. So I knew we had some different Division I transfers coming in, and a big guy from Cairo, Egypt, and we would have a chance to have a lot of success there, and I could have a bigger role, and being a little more, Minneapolis, St. Paul, that area, that's a little bit more like Chicago. So that was kind of my thought process during that, knowing that my end goal was to go overseas. And I did have the NBA in my mind, but I was also realistic with where I was in my life as a 18-year-old kid that, spent a lot of time just growing up and only focus on basketball and, going through different things. And I just kind of wanted to go on a journey myself. So that's why I went to South Dakota. It was the furthest school away from home that I had an offer from at that level. And it was good. It was a great year. I learned a lot. But I did set a goal at 19 to go overseas and to use basketball to see the world. And that's kind of, where I'm actually at right now from that 19-year-old self, what I'm kind of battling and going through the last couple of years. I kind of see those two people like, talking to each other a little bit. So that's been why I'm able to figure out what I'm doing next. So
wow, that's actually really incredible.
Yeah, sorry. When you said you played overseas, so you said after this not get in the team of the Pelicans, so you got an offer from a Bulgarian team. So what that means, you play in Bulgaria in their national championship, but they played also in the Euro basket or something?
Yep. So basically every country in Europe has their own league that's just in their country.
Yes.
And then some teams have, just like in soccer, like, they have their teams that play Euro League, Euro Cup, Euro Challenge, and there might even be one more. Okay. But that's kind of when you see the different teams playing from different countries. So my experience in Bulgaria, I was only there 2 months, and because then the pandemic came. So then I went.
Yep.
And so that that was it was an interesting time, because I kind of lived under a rock for a while. I didn't even really know the pandemic was what it was and what it was about to happen. Like I just kind of was in Bulgaria playing basketball, trying to understand, a little bit mad, a little bit down, a little bit defeated, but also like very hungry and driven to use this defeat into the next kind of springboard, which, then my mind shifted back to like, okay, I want to see other different countries now. Or what I did and chose to do was I want to dive really deep into my connections, into my like quote unquote status as a professional basketball player, because I've never been that like, oh, just because I play basketball, I deserve this, oh, just because I'm just kind of like a regular weirdo that likes to do art and, have a good time with his friends. But that was interesting for me. That was interesting time.
Question. So did you have to go back to the USA during COVID, or did you stay in Bulgaria and then go somewhere else, like once it got better in terms of the COVID situation?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that was kind of a blessing in disguise in a way. Like, so there were some things that went down with like my contract that, I wasn't really getting paid the amount of money that I was supposed to be getting paid. And, there were other things in the contract that just weren't delivered. And I was just at that point in my life where I was like, hey, like, I don't really need much. I just signed a contract to, to come over here and keep this going. But the fact that there's like nothing in there and like, just talking, when you're over there and you have other Americans on your team, you tend to build a good bond with them because, you at least can relate to where you guys come from and all that. But that was like difficult in a way to manage that. And and just talk through that with them. So kind of lost my train of thought there a little bit. Sorry.
Did you go back to the USA during COVID, or did you stay there and then just wait it out and then go somewhere else after?
Mickey, you see what I'm talking about with how I go in a billion directions? I
Yeah.
went back a week before the pandemic hit because I broke my contract with the team, and that's an interesting story that we can go into another time. But I broke the
It's okay
contract. They told me no, and I was just kind of like,
because
I was
it was
worried, man. I was worried. I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? How do I go to practice when I just told them that I'm trying to break the contract? So, I booked a bus to Sofia, 3 hours, and then I booked a flight to Germany, and then I flew from Germany to Chicago. Long story short, there was some
uh,
turbulence in there, but it was,
and then you tried it in Spain after this and that, but after COVID, so there was another break, right?
yeah,
Because if
yeah.
you're now in the States, then maybe you can't even go out anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what also led me back to working at Chipotle, because COVID, and they gave at least people that worked in the restaurant, they were essential workers. So
Yes.
I eat Chipotle almost 5 times a week anyway. So I was like, this is a good opportunity to get out of the house still, and then also eat free Chipotle. So
Okay, so you worked at a place where you would be anyway, right?
exactly,
To
exactly.
and then after, I mean, I think they stopped also any games. So then after a while they started again, and then you had a chance to sign up with another team.
Yeah, exactly. So it was basically just that. I think it was just the rest of that season that everything kind of shut down, and then there was questions if the next season was going to happen or not. And then that's kind of where things lined up again. Like Coruña, they had a new coach coming in, and he kind of called me and asked where I was with my basketball journey, and I was like, it worked out well to go back there, and I've just been moving differently with it, and not been fully, hey, I'm a basketball player. I'm more than a basketball player. And just seeing things that I've seen from a basketball business perspective, it's scary, man. The world's a scary place. You never know who you can trust, who you can't. So I've tried to learn from my mistakes and learn to shut up sometimes. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna shut up.
No, I mean, I have another question. So you said you worked with an agent, but sometimes also personal connection when a coach knows you from somewhere. Then this comes together and said, hey, you want to come and join my team? Like what you said in Coruña. And also Coruña was actually in the first league of Spanish basketball or second?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah. So we always, that it was cool. It was really cool to see from the year 2015 to my last season there in 2022. It was to see the growth of the game of basketball in a soccer dominant city and community. Like that's what has opened my eyes and has opened my creativity the most, because like I said, I'm a little, I'm a 6'2" guy, I'm not in the basketball world, I'm small, and I think over there, I bring a unique style of like American flair, but also like the Spanish fundamentals. So just kind of like being someone different that they can reference, a guy that's not just putting in his headphones and, going to the grocery store, not talking to anybody, and going in his apartment. I really engulf myself in the community. I was working at a restaurant at one point during the seasons, and just building relationships that, I'm happy I've done that. And that's where that's at.
I have to say something. I mean, I lived in Barcelona for a year and now in Madrid. But I have seen a lot of courts, especially in the parks, right? And I see people playing. So always say Spanish is maybe number one is soccer, but probably number two is basketball, because there's a really passion. There's, I mean, a lot of people playing this. So, and I mean, especially here in Madrid as a capital, they're building courts. They're making sure that people just for fun can play the game, right? And
Yeah.
of course, they have also a lot of soccer pitches, but I see also courts for basketball, right?
Well, yeah, I think that kind of goes to making the game more accessible, to start,
Yes.
and that kind of comes from, okay, well, how do you get, first start with kids, right? How do you get kids to see what they see soccer and what they're born into and all their friends are playing it? How do we get them? How do we change their mind to have that same passion that they should have ingrained in their systems for soccer? How do we do that for basketball? And it's a difficult task, but it's also not something that you're going to win. You're not going to win, and you got to understand that you're not going to win, and just try to be different. And and in the same way, I'm different, so by being myself, I've really seen that connection over those years. And that's kind of what's exciting. And there's references. I mean, you got, Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol, Ricky Rubio, guys like that have been there.
Calderon.
Exactly. Exactly. And, they've done it not just in Spain, not just here in the NBA, they've done it in the Olympics.
Yes.
And that's where basketball, you can play basketball in different ways. Now next summer in Paris, it'll be the first summer for 3-on-3 basketball. And, that's a game that if you go, you see in the park sometimes they're playing 3-on-3, it's a different style of basketball, but ultimately it's what basketball is. It brings people together with a ball, and it gets them to be a team and work towards a common goal and accomplish that. And, at the end of the day, if you lose, you lose. Hopefully you were competing against some good guys. You had some good guys on your side, and you can all kind of share that experience together, whether it's with some Estrella Galicia after, or whether it's by yourself, and that's the only 2-3 hour stretch you see of those guys. Each team and each year and each basketball experience gives you a different chance to be inspired. So I think that's ultimately where the focus is. And there's clubs in Madrid like Estudiantes, that very historic club, and they're actually in second division right now, so it's the promotions and relegations. That's what makes it really fun over there.
Okay,
yeah,
so
something too as well.
Yeah.
So when I was working at the school in
Go
Madrid,
ahead.
a lot of my students, they love football because football/soccer is a religion in Spain. Like everyone worships it, everyone loves it. But also basketball is a secondary sport because when I told people I was like from Chicago, like, oh, Michael Jordan, that was the first thing that they referenced.
yeah,
Like,
Chicago
Jordan.
Bulls.
It just like pops up in their head, so that's interesting. But I want to flip the script. I wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite things about living in Coruña? Because I was in Coruña just for the weekend, but it was very chill compared to Madrid. The food was incredible. But like, tell us, like, your experiences like living in Coruña in Galicia.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most beautiful places I've been to, just on like a daily basis. And I think, having that kind of peninsula style, and then just the city is on the beach, it's like this. It's a very, very unique place. And the natural beauty, that's the natural beauty over anything. Like if you enjoy, taking walks or hikes, or, if you enjoy the water, there's so many different things in Coruña, to kind of adapt to whoever's there. The food, the fresh seafood is, it's unbelievable. Just the people, man. The people, I think is really great people in Galicia. It's people with big hearts, people that are willing to help. You have your normal, typical, angry old people here and there, and it does rain a lot, especially in the winter, so maybe that contributes to a little bit of their mood. But usually those angry people, you just gotta have a cup of coffee with them first, and then they start to warm up to you, and then they got the most interesting stories. But yeah, it's definitely one of those places that means a lot to me personally, because I've spent a lot of time there, and I've gone through different stages of my life and my career, and I've experienced a lot of different highs and lows personally and professionally, in like that 5-6 year span. So it's definitely a place that if you've never been to, for starters, you got to Google it. But then, you know, if you're ever in Europe, it's very recommended. You know, the nightlife is unbelievable. You know, it has a little bit of everything, and it's beautiful. You know, just bring your umbrella. Bring your umbrella.
Hi, listeners. We have to end this episode, but don't worry. Zach is so exciting, and what he tells us. So we have a second episode 15, and thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.